this is what it feels like to be surrounded by people that just get you. And I see that play out with the young people we work with every single day. And that's really, really cool for this generation of kids to be able to grow up with that. I mean, I'm getting tingles thinking about it right now.
The center of everything for us is empathy and connection and understanding that young people are really just trying to thrive and live.
It's the sense of belonging. It's empowering each other. That's the spirit of love. That's the gift of love, and love isn't going anywhere.
Welcome back to the Impact Lounge and our Conversations That Connect Us series. I'm Stacy Huston, the Executive Director of SixDegrees.org, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm really excited to be here for our Pride Edition. We have incredible panelists today that are change makers in their communities, and we're going to meet them all in a quick second. But right now, I want to introduce a very special co-host today, Scott Turner Schofield, who is actually a board of director at SixDegrees.org and is a trailblazing transgender advocate for the entertainment industry. Scott, please say hello.
Well, hello. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm already inspired by this incredible group of people who are standing on the front lines with our youth today. Thank you for being here.
So to our panelists, we're so excited to dive in. But first, I want to give each of you a chance to introduce yourselves. Please share your name, your pronouns, and a little bit about your organizations.
Fabulous. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Hancy Stokes. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the communications director at Smile. Smile is based in Washington, D.C., and since 1984, we have worked to support and empower LGBTQ plus youth. We do that through housing, mental health services, and community building programs, really working to build a world where queer and trans youth thrive.
Welcome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Van Bailey. I use they, them, theirs pronouns. I am representing Campaign for Southern Equality, specifically the Trans Youth Emergency Project, where we support transgender youth and their families who have been impacted by the care bans as it relates to gender-affirming care. We provide navigation support for them and information for them in terms of providers. And really, it's just a wraparound support so people can get the gender-affirming care and the life-saving care that youth deserve.
Hi, my name is Sarah Cunningham, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm the founder of Free Mom Hugs. And our mission is to empower the world to celebrate the LGBTQIA+ community through visibility, education, and conversation.
It's going to be a really good conversation today, and I'm so excited to have each of you. Absolutely. So I want to just dive right in. If Scott, you want to kick us off?
Absolutely. So, you know, I'm thinking about how each one of you fosters communication and connection in really powerful ways, like through hugs, through advocacy, through education, and more, and how important it is that we are fostering these things among our youth right now, because they're the ones who are building community next, right? So how do you approach building safe and affirming spaces in your work?
Well, Smile's been around since 1984. We've been doing this work for 40 years, which is amazing for a LGBTQ nonprofit anyways. But we were really born out of a community response where there were a lack of spaces for youth. This was the middle of the AIDS epidemic, and young people were really being left to the wayside. And we were seeing young people come out younger and younger, but where were the spaces for them? And so Smile was born out of that need, and that has remained at the core of what we do. Our programs and our exact services have really changed over the last 4 decades, but what we really keep in the core of it is when you are around people who look like you, who have shared experiences with you, there is so much power in that. And so if it's either an after-school program that we have where you're just hanging out with people because maybe your school is not an affirming place, or you're a young person who is experiencing homelessness and you're now in a safe, stable home where you can actually focus on things like your gender transition or education, because otherwise the communities you were in weren't supportive of that. We really see that transformation on an individual level and on that community level. And so keeping young people at the core of our work is really vital.
Yeah. And for us, you know, we work specifically with families and caregivers who have transgender youth who are trying to navigate their own kind of healthcare journey. We were born specifically out of the South at first. We were starting to notice that these bans, when it came to gender affirming care for youth, were happening. And then we started seeing the expansion of these bans occurring. And we decided to rise to the occasion and say, okay, we're going to expand out of the South and be a national kind of focus for these youth. And for us, it's really threefold, right? Being able to get people information around providers, because many of them are saying, I don't even know how to find a provider. The other piece is getting people money, right? So we have a grant program for families. And then, we're also trying to foster connections between our families as well, right? And so for us, the center of everything for us is empathy and connection and understanding that young people are really just trying to thrive and live, and they just want medical care like everybody else. And so for us being the adults in their lives, it's really how do we create more opportunities for them to get that access to care, and that's why the Trans Youth Emergency Project is there.
Yeah, I love that. I think what's been successful for the movement of Free Mom Hugs is that building community is I think it's the most important thing that we can do. Building community and creating safe spaces. And I think we do that best by being visible. And that's just showing up. And then there was a time that I thought Free Mom Hugs would be the bridge between the non-affirming and the affirming, and we tried to bridge that gap. And then it just was work. It wasn't working. I said it was work, but as in it wasn't working. But once we put our focus on the community and their families, the ripple effect of that brought people together. So now we have chapters all across the country who are showing up at Second Chance Prom, Transgender Valentine's Banquet, National Pride Rides. We collaborate with PFLAG and other organizations who are already doing the work, whatever we can do to be that loving presence. And that builds a strong community. It's embedded within the community.
I mean, that is so important, the collaboration piece, because I always say at 6 Degrees, all we do is collective impact work, because we know it's not going to be one single organization or one philanthropist that's going to be able to solve this. It's going to take different intersections that we can come in and support entire communities. And with that being said, community and connection is really at the heartbeat of everything we do at 6 Degrees. And when we talk to organizations like all of yours, we know that community central for you all too. But that it's made up of individuals like you all that are doing this work. And so we always like to know a little bit more about the change makers that we're talking to in terms of what community has done for them, where they've really seen community show up, or where they have had an opportunity to make community. Because if we're going to move forward and find some bridges, I think it's important to have a common memory. And so in these conversations, I think we can see each other a little bit more clear. We can see the commonalities that we have. So I would love to just make space for you all to share some stories of impact that you have seen in the communities around you.
Well, I can start. I think on a personal level, I work for a queer organization. Most of my coworkers are queer. I feel so lucky and grateful that I can show up as my full self at work. But it's not every day that I feel in community with people. And I remember about 2 summers ago, I was at an LGBTQ bar here in DC. We were watching the National Women's Soccer League. And I remember looking around and being like, right, this is what it feels like to be surrounded by people that just get you. And I see that play out with the young people we work with every single day. And that's really, really cool. 2 years ago, we produced a video for one of our annual fundraisers that featured this group of friends that calls themselves the Gays. And they are all between the age of 9 and 11. And it's for trans and non-binary kids. And we just filmed a conversation with them. And I mean, it bounced in every single direction. And, we were asking them, what's your favorite thing about coming to Smile? And they're like, the snacks, getting to see my friends. And it was just, I think, to witness just kids being kids, and then thinking about these kids are in elementary and middle school, and they're growing up with other kids, other trans kids. That is not something that a lot of my peers have had the opportunity to do. We have found community. We have found family in our adulthood, but for this generation of kids to be able to grow up with that. I mean, I'm getting tingles thinking about it right now, and just like it's such a small moment, but so powerful.
Yeah. We were just in Shepherdstown, West Virginia for their first ever Pride event.
Wow.
Scott and I were there with our team just on Sunday, and that was a theme that came up a lot. And we were interviewing people as they were lining up for this parade. Really small town. We're talking about less than 2,000 people. 1,000 people showed up for this parade. And we were like, where are you coming in from? And everyone was coming in from these small towns all around. We talked to Front Royal Pride, which is another small town in Virginia. And they had just started maybe 2 years ago. And they said, what we hear is, I can't believe this is happening in my town. Like, I can't believe, because I grew up feeling alone and isolated, and now I feel like I can actually build community here and be seen, and it's really powerful. What about you, Dr. Van Bailey?
So for me, what a great question. Community for me has been a life-saving force. I think as a trans, non-binary person who's also transmasc, it can feel very isolating. And, for me, one of the things that I really love doing is thinking about what I can control in the times that we're in. And one of the things I think about is fashion. I am a stylist as well. And one of the things that I really love doing is working with young people around their own style. And so, when I think about empowerment, I think about bodily autonomy and what we can control. And that's really about the clothes that you put on. And so I remember one of the first times that I was able to, basically facilitate a fashion show for young people. And I remember having a conversation with somebody who was like, I don't know how to use a binder. And so I was like, let's do this, right? And I remember them coming down the runway so confidently. They looked so good, and they were so excited, and they felt like they were their authentic selves. And so for me, community is just around garnering opportunities for people to see themselves and to see themselves fully. And so that's something that I really hold kind of to a memory today. And it also makes me think about the work that we're doing in Campaign for Southern Equality. We were hit with the hurricane in Asheville. And it was really an opportunity for people to come together. And one of the things that came out of that was the LGBTQ Resource Center they now have. And they were able to bring in vendors and people from all over the state to just give people haircuts, right? To make people feel normal again. And so I think about things like that around what can we control and how can we come together? And something as powerful as somebody getting a gender affirming haircut is amazing and can make them feel like themselves again, or more grounded. So that's just something that I think about,
It's dignity.
Right? Yeah.
And I think that we can sometimes overlook those things and say, well, basic needs, just let everyone just have their basic needs. It's what about the joy that comes with that too? And being able to put on something that makes you feel how you feel on the inside. It's really beautiful. Thanks for sharing.
Empowerment is an amazing thing, a gift to give someone. I think for me, the first sense of community would be in the word belonging. My very first Pride Festival, I made a homemade button that said "Free Mom Hugs," and I stood there, and with anyone who made eye contact with me, I would say, "Could I offer you a free hug or a high five?" And the first hug I gave went to a beautiful girl who said it had been 4 years since she had a hug from her mother because she's a lesbian. And I pulled her in tight. And I said, well, I'm a mom, and I'm not letting go until you do. And that is what we call in Free Mom Hugs the spark, because something happens to the giver and the receiver. And I think it's the essence of humanity. It's the connection that you make. It's the sense of belonging. It's empowering each other. And then you belong. And what I heard the most from the community on that day was that they had lost their sense of belonging. So whatever we can do as a community, as allies and members of the community, to create a space for that, that gives me community too. That gives me a sense of belonging as well. So it really does go both ways.
I'm finding myself feeling so emotional, honestly, right now. I'm like,
hold together.
Just let's name that, right? And I think it's because this moment that we're in right now is, I started my transition 25 years ago. I cannot believe it, but it's June, and that's when it happened. It was Pride 2000 is when I had the moment of like, oh, not all lesbians want to be men. This is what that is. Okay. Right. And so I've seen our culture rise and very precipitously fall now around acceptance and dignity and and joy for our communities. And unfortunately, we're watching that happen at the expense of young people. Right. I was still a teenager when I realized that I was trans. I had been trans all along. It was just like a lot of questions with no words to ask them. Right. And yet sort of all of the grown-ups around me who created these spaces for me to have connection, who got me to doctors, who could help me, right? Who gave me the hugs that I needed in that moment. Like, that is why I am who I am today and why I've been able to have the impact that I have as an adult.
And we're so grateful for that.
Thank you. Well, me too, right? Right? Because there's nothing greater or more powerful than helping somebody find their purpose. I was boosted by other people who were doing this work. So first of all, I just want to say thank you, because I'm feeling who I am thanks to the work that we're doing, and I'm watching the work get better and better and better. You are all so clearly bringing joy to the work that you're doing. So I want, just as like it helps me when I hear other people talk about it. Where are you finding your joy? How is this happening even as things are so difficult right now?
It's tough right now, that's for sure. I feel like I was a shell of a human for the first few months of this year. We were getting really hard questions from the kids that we worked with. I'm getting emotional thinking about it, but we had one kid say to us, like, are they even going to allow me to go to school anymore? Like, that is what they're grappling with. And we had parents say to us, we don't know what to tell our kids. We want to tell them it's going to be okay, but we're not sure right now. And I think the joy for me has really helped me get through what's going on right now. It's sharing those moments with friends. It's talking with coworkers, and being people together and holding space for how heavy this moment is. And then remembering the sun is still shining and we get to celebrate. It's World Pride this weekend. We get to go out there and be in community with one another. It's seeing that group of kids in our program space talk with one another and just laugh. We held a barbecue for some of our housing residents the other day, and one of our housing residents who is previously undocumented performed in drag. And just to see again, like, that celebration of who we are as like a vibrant queer community, that's where that joy is coming from, and that's what gives me hope to keep going even on the days when it feels the hardest.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really powerful. For me, and I really love what you said, storytelling is so important for me to feel some semblance of joy right now. And, one of the things that our organization did was gather the stories of the families that we were working with across the country and create this book, Trans Kids, Our Kids. And the book is phenomenal in the sense that it does garner aspects of joy, right? It can feel very bleak right now in terms of what's happening as it relates to healthcare for transgender youth. But one of the things that I hold on to is once they are able to get the care that they need, how happy they are, how affirmed they're being by the adults in their lives, the place that they're in, they started in, and then where they're at right now, you could just see such a difference. They send photos to us sometimes. We get thank you notes from families. And that's what gives me joy, right? Because this can sometimes feel really hard, sometimes really daunting. But seeing people, even though they might be traveling hundreds of miles to go to their doctor's appointments, and that's the reality for a lot of our young people who are in these banned states. They have to travel really far to get care. But once they do get that care and they share the story of like, thank you so much for providing that grant for us, or thank you so much for just holding space for us on the phone, because we do patient navigation as well, and just holding space to hear everything that we're going through and create a plan, and then seeing or having them send a picture of their young person in their affirmed gender and feeling so good about themselves makes me very emotional, And it's a good emotion, right? Like I feel a lot of joy, and I feel very proud, and I feel very excited and happy that they can just feel like they've got, like the adults in their lives have their backs. And I think that that's so important, right? And so that's what brings me joy. And I love being able to see people actually get the care that they need, even if it's hard to get there. The transformation that happens for the young people just to be their authentic selves.
Well, the short answer is what brings me joy is lemon pepper wings. Period.
Say no more.
That's if I need a really quick fix. But the long answer is, and the truth is, to see the results. To see the results from families empowering their children, having authentic relationships, and to see young people come to Oklahoma City Pride and look for the Free Mom Hugs booth, and you see them every year, and every year they're more confident. They have a group of friends, and they stay together. That's when I can see the joy, when I can see the evidence, the results. In church, we call it the fruits of our labor. Like the fruit of the Spirit is life-giving. It's empowering, and that's the spirit of love. That's the gift of love, and love isn't going anywhere. It's empowering. It brings about courage and authenticity and conversations like this. So I do get down and I think, God, how does the world continue to spin on some days? I'm not kidding. But there are other days when I think, thank you, Lord, that I'm accountable and I can do this.
You know, that's so powerful. And it's true, you know, as someone who's been spiritually abused, religiously harmed, right, to still thank God for whatever that means. Sometimes I go back and forth, thank the universe. And it's always coming back to community, right? It's always coming back to the connections that I have, that I feel so lucky to have.
I think that's what we were made for. For each other, to acknowledge each other, to serve each other, to care for each other. I like to think of it as the buddy system.
And to think, again, just to throw back to, you know, if my understanding of who I was came out of being separated, being excluded, being told that I was wrong, and yet everything that I've been able to do came from the community of people just like you who are out there making communities so intentionally, right? Think about this moment and these young people, what they're going through. I cry all the time about what they're going through, right? And how hard it is, how much harder it is. You know, they didn't even know how to talk about trans people when I came out. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Now it's specific, right? But to think about the work that you're doing that we can all be part of, and what trajectory that's going to send these folks on and what they're going to do based out of this. That's what I'm so looking forward to.
Yeah. As an ally that has my own intersections, right? It's like, I'm a mom, I'm a Christian, I'm a social justice warrior, whatever that is anymore, right? Like, as someone that wants to lean in and learn, you know, I show up in these ways. I want to create spaces and conversations because I think it is what you've all kind of echoed on. It brings humanity into the conversation. I think it's a lot harder to hate or even to be ignorant to when you get to hear from folks. And I'm grateful that my kids have an Uncle Scott that they got to spend time with, and that they're going to grow up in a way that is not confusing and not fearful, but that, you know, when we open up our communities and we say, welcome, come here, and we can have some conversation and we can ask some questions, and sometimes we're going to mess up, but we're going to find a path forward together. I think there's a lot of hope, and I think there's a lot of joy in that. And so as we close, I do think it's really important to leave that nugget of hope, especially when it comes to youth. And so when you all think about, if there is, and there's more than one thing, of course, right? But if there's one thing that you would say that you wanted a young person to know that is experiencing that fear and that isolation maybe, and just not knowing, you know, what would you leave them with so that they know that they have something to hold on to for tomorrow? You're like, Handsy, go first.
In the fall, I saw the comedian Alok, who's now doing
love.
Speak, and was a comedy set, and they ended their set by saying, trans people, and particularly trans youth, are such overwhelming evidence of the existence of hope and change and joy. And that has stuck with me. And I think particularly about what young trans people and young queer people are up against right now, that there is a world where they get to be themselves. They get to inspire change. They get to inspire joy. That is really what the message I want to send to young people, and that you are not alone. We've been talking about community this entire time. Young people are not alone. There is a strong and vibrant community. There are people down the street from you who care about you. There are people across the world who care about you. Our mission is to see queer and trans youth become queer and trans adults, and that there are people here who are going to be with you on that journey.
Very powerful. For young people, I would just say you're necessary and we need you here, right? Stay with us. It's a beautiful journey, even if it's hard, right? And there is like you were saying, a community that is waiting and is here for you and wants to see you thrive and become old, right? Like we want to see you grow up. And so just know people got your back. I would just say, just stay grounded in the fact that you're divine. Many people wish they had your bravery. People are envious of that, so revel in it. You're divine.
I would say to the young person that to surround yourself with people who celebrate you. And if you don't have people like that in your life, then find them, because we're here. And that hope is hard sometimes. Sometimes I wonder, what does hope even look like? But then I think of you, and I think of the gift that you are, and that you're worthy, and you were created to be celebrated just as you are. And don't let anybody ever take that from you. That's their burden to carry, not yours. And then lastly, courage. I don't know who said it first, but courage takes practice, and courage is contagious. And you might just do one thing today that would be courageous for you. If that's telling someone how you're feeling, or wearing that special shirt that makes you feel empowered, or whatever it is, you know what it is, step by step. You can do it. And happy Pride.
What a conversation. I think hope looks a lot like this. I think hope's one conversation at a time as well, and creating space. I know.
And crying.
Crying's a good
Listen, I'm the
release,
town
right?
crier.
Yeah. Town crier. I'm so honored to share space with each of you today. And I really hope and pray that people listen to this conversation, that they feel called to listen to that conversation, and that through that they're able to be a little kinder, have a little bit more courage, hold on for another day, seek resources, which we will share in our show notes so that you can learn more about these incredible organizations and the work that they're doing. And we will continue to champion all that you all are doing, because it's really, really important, and more important now than ever before. And a special thank you to my co-host, Scott, and friend. We are better at our organization because of what you bring to it. And grateful to have you here today to do this with me.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for being an organization that knows that diversity matters, and that you got to have these voices and these perspectives to be good, right? All 6 degrees, right?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.